sometimes, a lot of the time actually, it gets more and more. I start to feel like I am at odds with my generation. I start to feel like I am the person out of time. And, you know, it really ticks up a notch when, when discussion of music and, musical tastes um, enters the frame. Because I am one of those millennials that actually prefers older music. I prefer music from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s. I prefer that a lot more than I prefer most music that comes out today. And I just think a lot of the music that comes out today is it's very much aligned with the times. I mean, if you think about what artistic formats um, create the trends, it's basically architecture and fashion. And so music, um, film's a little different though, because that's collaborative, but music, literature, um, painting, that sort of takes its cue, in a large part, though I'm sure many artists would disagree, but it sort of takes its cue from fashion and from architecture, because that fashion and architecture, these two art forms, they take their cue from reality, basically, from um, what actually can be utilized to make art. I mean, if you think about architecture, if you're going to design a building, you need space for that building, and there's no more new frontier land. Therefore the style has to change. Things have to change with architecture, with fashion too. I mean, you know, we setting up sweatshops where people are paid minuscule to, make your garments. You can't really have the same kind of fashion that, you once did, because, you can't keep, on acting against the human rights, given a more and more publicized world. Yeah, it's a good thing if, less and less of our clothes are being made by slave labor. But with that trade-off, we have, we can't afford to wear things that look better without paying way more money for them. And so fashion thus changes. So fashion changes, and architecture changes to, what can actually be feasibly done, in terms of those art forms. And then music, literature, painting, everything, it takes its cue from fashion and from architecture, um, which I would call the atmospheric art forms. And so I'm at odds with my generation in terms of taste a lot of the time. Now, film is something different, right? Because film is collaborative art. So there has to be a standard of, if you're going to have a lot of money put into a film. And I know there have been some clunkers that have been made with a lot of money, but generally, if you're going to put a lot of money into the production of a film, it has to be of some standard that is, that is actually good. But to come back to talking about how I feel at odds with my generation, I feel like I'm one of the older people who, is called boomer, as a negative stereotype, as a negative label. I feel like I'm in that same camp. I should be called boomer too, because honestly, I don't really find what's so appealing, with Ariana Grande, Taylor Swift, uh, Post Malone. Now, I'm not saying they aren't artistic, right? I'm not saying they aren't artistic. Let me clarify, okay? I'm simply saying that their art takes its cue from fashion and architecture, whether that's consciously or unconsciously. And I'm not really a fan of modern architecture and modern fashion. And I think, think about automobiles too, right? The designs of new cars that are coming out, that have been coming out for the last decade. They're just not as, they're not as beautiful as a Gran Torino. They're not as cool as a Chevrolet. They're just not. They're just not. They don't entice in that way. At least for me, where it concerns my tastes. And yes, I might as well be a boomer. Yeah, technically I'm a millennial, but I might as well be a boomer. And maybe you should call me that. Maybe I should be called Boomer Blackfence Cat, or Boomer Cat, or Blackfence Boomer. Although I don't know what that would mean, other than an old guy who's, like Wilson in Home Improvement. You only see the eyes. Anyway, if you've got any questions, philosophical questions or other questions about my opinion on something, type them below. Have a good day. Peace. Meow.